Working with John Leguizamo on this movie was a dream come true. Obviously, like a lot of people, I was a big fan and had been for a long time. But when I started working with him in person, I think that probably the thing that surprised me the most was just the breadth and depth of his film knowledge. He's a true cinephile, and I love people like that. I like to think of myself as, the same thing. But even though we had never worked together before, just having that basis, that kind of knowledge basis, kind of makes for its own kind of shorthand. Besides all of that, he is just one of the most warm and generous directors I think I've ever worked with. You can tell that in his very long and kind of storied career, he has figured out that the way to get the best work out of his collaborators is to make them feel appreciated. And he goes out of his way to do that. And it's a really nice way to work. He has high expectations, but when you're working with him, you just want to meet them. So I had a great time. A couple of my previous films actually had director actors in them, and it can be a little tricky. People have egos, that's just completely normal. But John was just amazing about, just being completely not precious about his own performance. And he made it very clear to me from probably the second day, you need to be honest with me about my acting. Just the fact that he was comfortable enough to say that as a performer, again, kind of speaks volumes to the kind of person he is, that he wants the best movie. It made my job so much easier that I could just kind of evaluate his moments in the movie the same way I could evaluate any other cast member who doesn't, happen to be sitting right behind me on the couch every day. It was like a masterclass to watch him, knowing that he's directing on set. He's never alone in a scene. He's always acting opposite someone else, or in many cases, groups of other people. So it was really amazing to watch how he could kind of craft his own performance from take to take to take, and really see how self-aware he is as an actor. And I mean that in the best of ways. Well, for this particular film, John wanted a real verite style. He wanted to kind of be in the classrooms, in the tournaments with these kids, to feel that you were kind of part of the class. Our cinematographer, Zach Zamboni, he worked with Anthony Bourdain for, over a decade. And his particular shooting style and his incredible eye for action, that style just lent itself incredibly well to a movie like this.
Jackson! Woo!
The biggest challenge for me on this movie was definitely that John made it very clear that he wanted the chess to be real, right? That he wanted to see the chess and that he didn't want to fake the moves. There's a couple of examples in film history where, even though these are supposed to be master level chess players, the board is backwards. So he was very careful to stay away from that. The real guys that are portrayed in the film, several of them were consultants on the film. And that helped immensely because they were also able to supply me with breakdowns of each game, move by move breakdowns, so that because I don't really play chess, I could follow along with the action on screen in the dailies and make sure that the move that they were supposed to be making is actually the move I'm showing on screen. The other challenge that I faced with this particular film is, and I think John as well, is how do you make chess exciting, right? It's not boxing, it's not baseball, it's not hockey, all of these things that can be directed in a way to make them look more exciting than maybe they even are in real life. No matter what, with chess, it's two people sitting across from each other moving chess pieces. But what we found very quickly, and what the real guys told the actors was players have very definitive styles, and we realized that that's not something that gets shown very often in films that deal with chess.
I'm gonna take this, I'm gonna go here, take this, and it's done. That's checkmate.
And these guys, our characters in particular, being where they were from and how a lot of times they were playing in the neighborhood or in their families, they tended to have a very kind of aggressive style.
Take it too long, baby. Come on, baby.
And that really made for something that we could play with. My favorite scene to work on in critical thinking, I would say, was definitely the final tournament. The whole film has led up to this big showdown. I really thought of Rocky, to be honest, when I was cutting it. It's funny because it's chess. There's no kind of battle, or physical thing going on, and yet it is very physical. At that level of competition, it is a very intense, very kinetic style of play. And so it was really a lot of fun to craft that. It's always ideal when you can try to bring a composer on early in the editorial process. But, due to budgets and schedules these days, that's often just impossible. But we were able to do it on critical thinking. Chris Hajian, our composer, had known John from a previous job and was willing to kind of come in very early in the process. And it's something I like to do anyway. I generally really don't like to temp score films unless it's absolutely necessary, just because I think it kind of hamstrings the process and the composer, because you're kind of always chasing a sound that someone else has decided on and the composer kind of never really had a say in. So in this case, Chris was able to come in very early, like when I was still assembling certain scenes, and it was just an amazing collaboration. He was able to see what I was doing, see the direction the scene was going, and even when it wasn't finished, and then he'd go away and a few days later send me something and go, just see what this sounds like underneath what you're doing. And more often than not, you'd put it in and go, oh, like that's what this scene sounds like. And so I could kind of tailor the cut, not so much to specific beats, but just to the feel that he had sketched out. There really are these waypoints in the movie that are the tournaments, right? Like as the kids are going along and getting higher up from tournament to tournament, they can't all sound the same. And I think only because we were able to bring Chris in early was he able to really find what each of those things felt like, until we get to the end where it's just this kind of wonderful Rocky-esque moment. And I'm just so grateful that we were able to do that. Chris just turned out to be an incredible collaborator. On the day we locked picture, we were doing a little toast to the accomplishment of locking the movie, and I told him, John, you have kind of ruined me for all other directors. And he laughed, but it was a genuine sentiment. It was really a genuine pleasure to work with him.